What's going on YouTube? It's Tej back again with another video, and today I'm going to be reacting to Mel Kiper Jr.'s Mock Draft 4.0. Todd McShay's 4.0 came out, I think, 2 weeks ago. It's the highest viewed video on my channel, so I figured once I saw Mel dropped his latest mock, we'd go ahead and react to it. I have not seen this, so we were both experiencing this for the first time, so it should be interesting. It's a 2-round mock, so 31 of the 32 teams are included, 64 picks to get through. It should be a good one. Also, before we get in the video, if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button. It would mean the world to me. And if you're new to the channel, like sports content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And comment your thoughts down below on Mel Kiper Jr.'s 4.0 mock draft, and also my takes on his takes. You know, we can go 3 layers deep, Inception style. But regardless, let's go ahead and quit my rambling. First 2 picks, not much to talk about. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson. Cool, we can go ahead and move on. And it does look like the growing consensus is going to be Mac Jones at 3. So I have a couple more mock drafts I'm going to try to put up on the channel before the draft itself. And I think I'm starting to have the needle move to Mac Jones at 3. Everybody close to the game and talks to those who work in the front offices, all signs point towards Mac Jones, which a little dumbfounding. I'd go for the upside play in someone like Justin Fields or Trey Lance. But at the same time, Kyle Shanahan is a mastermind, and John Lynch has done a fantastic job as the GM. If they feel like Mac Jones is the guy they can get the most out of, I guess you have to defer to their judgment, right? So I'd go somewhere else, but Mac Jones, a lot of other years, is a top 5 pick, so, you know, why not this year, I suppose. So Jones at 3, I have my hesitations, but nonetheless, it's a QB and an upgrade for San Francisco. Then he's got a trade here with Atlanta and Miami. So Miami goes from 6 back up to 4. Interesting, and it's to get their guy, I guess. I guess Mel sees Kyle Pitts as their target, who they want at 6, and there's no guarantee. Actually, I would say in my mock, he's not there at 6. So I guess this makes sense. If you're the Dolphins, you move up a couple spots, you go ahead and get your guy who can be a versatile weapon, pass catcher on the outside, in the slot, and the tight end spot. Could do a lot of different things. Everybody's sung his praises. And then for Atlanta, you move back down to 6, but we'll get to that in 1 second. So Pitts off the board. That's who I have the Bengals taking to my mock. He has to be in Penei Sewell. Can't knock that. Maybe you move Jonah Williams inside, and then that offensive line starts to look really, really good. And then maybe next year, not this upcoming season, but the year after, when Riley Reif isn't under contract, Jonah Williams can play right tackle. On to the 6th pick in Mel Kiper's Mock Draft 4.0. He has the Falcons taking Trey Lance. And, you know, this has become such a contentious pick, whether they're at 4 or if they trade down. I'm of the thinking they have to get QB. If Arthur Smith does his job, they're not going to get another opportunity to get a top 5, in this case top 6 pick to get a franchise QB. And even if they are, most of the draft classes have 1, maybe 2 guys who are franchise caliber. And if you're at 6, there's no guarantee you're going to get them. Or even at 4, there's no guarantee you're going to get them. So in a draft class that's loaded with QB talent and you have a top 6 pick, I feel like they have to go QB. But there's plenty of people who are out there saying the Falcons restructured Matt Ryan's contract. There's no way they're going QB. They want to win right now. And maybe they're right, and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I think you have to go with an upside play. And a player like Trey Lance, he's the youngest QB of all 5 first-rounders. And if you want to throw Davis Mills, he's starting to get a little bit of first-round buzz, if you want to make it 6. But nonetheless, Trey Lance is the youngest of them all. So I think in a situation with Atlanta, where he sits for a year, maybe even 2, it serves as a red shirt of sorts at the NFL level, allows him to get acclimated to the speed. I mean, it's not necessarily that uncommon. I mean, Jordan Love's not playing this year, so he's sitting at least 2 years before he gets PT in Green Bay or before he's traded. So with a super young guy like Trey Lance, maybe 2 years is how long you want him sitting. But I've said this 1,000 times. Sorry if you've heard it before and you're going to hear it again. Just like with the Rams when they got Matt Stafford, he had a big contract. They can restructure once the trade is made. Or Atlanta next offseason can restructure the contract again. So I'm not really worried about how they've moved a bunch of the money and a big cap hit next offseason. I'm not worried about it. I still think he's movable. If he plays well this upcoming season and a team needs a QB and the Falcons are ready to hand it off to Trey Lance, someone's gonna call their phone. Like, you know, they're gonna get a phone call. You know, so I'm not really worried about that. I think they should go QB here, but especially if they trade down. Maybe they're thinking otherwise, but no, Kiper thinks they trade down and get their franchise QB. Interesting. On to pick number 7, best receiver in the class, Ja'Marr Chase to the Lions. I mean, that's a big W if you're a Detroit fan. I mean, you lose Kenny Golladay, you lose Marvin Jones, you need somebody to fill that spot. And Jared Goff is not necessarily an elite QB. He needs plenty of talent around him, and Ja'Marr Chase has an abundance of it. He's a mistake eraser with his ability to go up and get the football, catch it at its highest point. I mean, he's fantastic. You've heard it 1,000 times. He's unbelievable. Plus, he runs a 4.38 at his pro day. So he's 6 foot, 205 pounds, and a sub 4.4 guy. And even if you're not worried about necessarily the official LSU listing, Albert Breer was there. Plenty of scouts caught him between 4.36 and 4.4. So he's that fast, which is just crazy. The dude's a freak athlete, a tremendous player, and he's also just like Trey Lance, very young. Still, he's the youngest of the big 3 wide receivers, and if you throw Kyle Pitts in there, he's the youngest of the big 4. So plenty of upside, lots to like there. Lions need a wide receiver. Makes sense to me. This is an interesting one. Panthers at 8. I really feel like this should be a Rashawn Slater spot. And obviously, I think they're hoping Penei Sewell falls to them at 8, which, I mean, some mocks have it happening. But I think this is a Rashawn Slater. You get your potential tackle of the future. Plus, Taylor Moton's playing on the franchise tag. So there's no guarantee he's your right tackle long term. And also Greg Little, first year as a starter. He's going into year 3. It's typically when we see tackles take that jump. But nonetheless, it's not a guarantee it's going to work out. So Slater could be that potential tackle of either side of the line of the future. They also could just use interior help, and Rashawn Slater, for at least his rookie year, if he's not starting on the outside of the tackle spots, I think he can give you a lot of really good production on the inside at guard. So I feel like this should be a Rashawn Slater spot, but at the same time, Devonta Smith, I dig it a lot because obviously you lose Curtis Samuel, so why not get a guy who could be elite as a slot wide receiver? Fantastic separator, great hands, pretty good after the catch. I mean, there's a lot to like here. And plus, the knock is a smaller frame, but if he's playing on the inside, you're worried about a little less. I think this really could work. I would just go Slater, and you'll see this. I think the next mock I'm going to do is a 3-round one. I think in round 2 or 3, there's a player like maybe a Tutu Atwell or maybe even Seth Williams from Auburn, or maybe in the second round you jump for someone like Rondale Moore if he's still available. I think there's other gadget slot guys available later on in the board. I would use this pick on offensive line, but that's just me. Micah Parsons to the Broncos. Here in the first round, it feels like it's QB or linebacker. I'm in the thinking of Mel Kiper. I don't think they want to be wrong on Drew Lock. Very different than Andrew Luck. I don't think they want to be wrong on Drew Lock. So I think they're going to hold pat here at 9, see a tremendous scheme fit at Micah Parsons, say, cool, we're going to take him. Then you'll get to the second round and they'll say, well, we don't necessarily have a huge need. We could go offensive line. You always need somebody there. But this is the time where we can give a little bit of pressure. Not first-round QB pressure on Drew Lock, but a second-round guy like Davis Mills. I think that's what I am anticipating happening. But, again, obviously I could be wrong, but I think Parsons is a perfect scheme fit for Denver. You're starting to see this a lot. QB or Parsons, pretty much, for Denver. And here's a trade. There's been a lot of buzz about Dallas having interest moving up to get Kyle Pitts, but instead moving down in this trade. And I think that's a good spot. This is a team that has a lot of holes that has to fill. Like when I was doing the 3-round mock, I was pretty generous. They go corner in round 1, swing tackle, versatile offensive lineman round 2, and then IDL run stopper in round 3. And that's pretty generous, but there's no guarantee you're going to get that lucky. So getting more assets, more mid-round value, that's tremendous. And looks like Dallas is getting their 2022 first-round pick in this, projected trade. That'd be fantastic. I mean, this is a Dallas team that could win the division. To then also get a second first-round pick in the future, that's big time. That's how you get a cheap starter and you continue to be competitive and make the salary cap work, even though that's a very flexible number in my opinion. But nonetheless, all that rambling aside, Pats move up, take Justin Fields. This feels like a match made in heaven. Like, there's a bunch of places I think Justin Fields could be really good at. I think he'd be fantastic in Denver because of the skill position around him. I think he'd be great in New England because he'd be working with Bill Belichick, and they started to add a lot of talent this offseason. So, the couple of tight ends, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, they signed Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. The offense is getting better. Also, I think he'd be fantastic in San Francisco. I think the Niners should take him at 3. So Fields is such a good player. Wherever he goes, he's going to do well, but wherever he's been mocked, there's a lot of favorable situations for Justin Fields. So with the projected trade, New England gives up a future first, but they get their franchise QB. It feels like the one position they're missing, and also plenty of people have comped it. Justin Fields feels and plays a lot like Cam Newton, so that's a pretty good mentor to have in the same QB room as you. So I'd love it. I love it a ton. I hope the Pats do trade up if Fields starts to fall. On to pick 11, we got Jalen Waddle going to the Giants. I'm really loving this fit. I think this is a fantastic addition. This is just a better Darius Slayton. Plus, Sterling Shepard's only under contract for one more year. Also, Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard should not be wide receivers that prevent you from getting a player like Jalen Waddle. That's like having the opportunity to get an A on a test, but saying B's okay. I'd rather just get a B. Like, why? So Jalen Waddle's the A. He's the home run guy. Him and Kenny Golladay, perfect complements to one another. Waddle can do so much after the catch. Obviously, he can stretch the field. And then Kenny Golladay is your really dynamic, another one of those eraser type of wide receivers. Just takes away mistakes with his big catch radius, his ability to make contested catches. And, he's a field stretcher in a different way. He's a pretty good athlete, but he doesn't get open like Waddle, and he doesn't have the burners like Waddle, but he just goes up and he's 6'4", and he's bigger and stronger than everybody. So, he's a field stretcher in his own right. So, this also allows the Giants to remove any sort of questions there might be about Daniel Jones, right? Like, I think this is more realistic to be a Rashawn Slater spot. I don't know. I can see it either way. I think Slater's off the board by this point, but if he's here, like he is in this case, I think Dave Gettleman would opt to go Rashawn Slater over Jalen Waddle, which even that is beneficial, and he could play, right guard right away. Regardless, either one of those picks, it takes away the excuses for Daniel Jones. So it allows you to use the 2021-2022 season to make a decision. Just like I think the Broncos wanted to do last year before Drew Lock got hurt, and what I think the Dolphins are going to try to do this year with Tua, trying to surround him with weapons. They got to figure it out. Is this our guy? Because you don't want to waste a bunch of time. This is a team that has talent around the QB position to be able to win now. They need a QB. So I think this is going to be the year. You add Jalen Waddle or Rashawn Slater. Mel thinks it's going to be Waddle. If you do that, you're removing any sort of those BS variables that Jones or Jones supporters could use as a crutch. You're trying to figure out, can this guy take us to the playoffs? And Waddle, I think, would certainly help Jones be a better QB. So on to the Eagles at 12. Instead of wide receiver, obviously, because Devonta Smith is off the board, and as is Waddle, they go Patrick Surtain. So a little different. I have Smith going here. That's because I have Slater going at 8 to Carolina. But Patrick Surtain feels a big need. And then in the top of the second, Eagles probably go wide receiver. We'll see when we get there. But they need corner almost as bad, maybe just as bad as wide receiver. There's just a lot of holes in this team. That's why I like the idea of them moving down and getting another future first rounder. There's just a ton to plug away at on this roster. So you need assets, you need extra picks, and I applaud the Eagles for doing that. And then here at 12, BPA probably. This is just a BPA approach. I think Parsons would be a great fit. I think Jeremiah Wusu-Koromoa could be a sneaky pick here. And then obviously any of the corners, any of the wide receivers, obviously would be fantastic. And then I don't think it's possible, but Kyle Pitts, if he falls to your lap at 12, run the card and sprint it. Like, to have Jalen Hurts himself run it to the podium. So, nonetheless, like the pick there for the Eagles. Next up, the Chargers, Rashawn Slater. This would be just a gift. This is a future franchise left tackle. Or if you find somebody else who you would like a tackle, he can be kicked inside to play guard. The sky's the ceiling with, Rashawn Slater. So versatile, such a good player, so technically sound. I mean, a couple years ago against Ohio State, he dominates. I don't want to say necessarily dominates, but does better than anybody else against Chase Young. He fares the best against a guy who's already a top, maybe 6 edge rusher, top 8 edge rusher in the NFL. Crazy. Slater's a stud. We don't need to drone on this. I just don't think he's going to be available at 13. So I think this is a Christian Darrisaw spot, but nonetheless, offensive line here makes sense for the Chargers. Speaking of Darrisaw, he comes off the board next for the Vikings. This would be best case scenario for Minnesota. Like, I'm starting to get kind of feelings that, like, tackles end up going, maybe 7 and 8, Sewell to the Lions, Slater to the Panthers, and then the Giants get to a spot maybe instead of going pass catcher, they go Elijah Vera Tucker, and then Darrisaw goes 13 to the Chargers, and Minnesota's left with no options, no real good fits there at 14, so they have to go edge, which edge is a need, but they definitely need a left tackle. And here, Darsal's fantastic. He's a run block mauler, would be a great addition to the running game, help out Dalvin Cook that much more, but I also see the upside. He feels a lot like Mekhi Becton light, where his just like, it's a shame there's no combine because this guy would have dominated and he would have flown up boards even more, just like Mekhi Becton did. He has that strength, he has the athletic nature, he's great in the run game, and I see Darsal getting better and better as a pass blocker, so really like the fit here. This is a franchise left tackle guy for a team that desperately needs one. So then we get to the Cowboys back on the clock, and they go J.C. Horn. I mean, this would be just a slam dunk pick for Dallas, right? I have him taking Horn at 10. Even if Horn was taken by Philadelphia, then you get Patrick Surtain the second. So no matter what, you're getting one of the top 2 corners in the draft. You move down 5 spots to get him. You're paying him less because you went down 5 spots, which is also like cool, I guess. But also you get a future first from New England, who you figure to be a pretty good team, but the NFL every year, 32 first-round picks, there's going to be 40 or so first-round caliber guys. So you're getting a guy who could be an instant impact guy in the future if this trade were to happen. So this would be a huge draft day winner in my opinion, at least so far from what I've seen in this 4.0 mock draft from Mel Kiper. Cowboys move down 5 spots, get a future first-round pick, and still get the corner I think fits them the best. I mean, that would be tremendous. Corner that fits well, Arizona. This makes sense here. All the pass catchers are off the board too, so maybe they're a team that grabs a little early at Farley. The medical checks seem to point to that Farley is going to be okay, but it's a little worrisome. 2 back surgeries before you even get to the NFL. That's got to be a flag of sorts. Maybe it's not red. Maybe it's a yellow flag if you're a soccer fan, yellow card of sorts. But unless Farley fits a need, and the upside's there. I mean, upsides-wise, he might have the highest ceiling of any corner in this draft. So Arizona swings for the fences, gets a position of need, and they're banking on Farley staying healthy in this mock. Then we get to the Raiders at 17, kind of a late spot for Elijah Vera Tucker, and especially as of late, he's another one of those names that's getting hot at the right time. He might not get past the Giants at 11, depending on how the pass catchers and how trades end up playing out, but this would be a great ad. They need interior help. I'd like Tevin Jenkins a little bit more here just because they need that right tackle. Maybe they're moving Denzel Good out to right tackle, but I'd go Jenkins, keep Good at guard. But you could also play Tucker at tackle. You could play him at guard, move Good out, whatever. It gives you plenty of different, pieces to work with in Las Vegas, and it keeps one of the best parts of that team. While there's new faces and it's been restructured a little bit, it keeps the offensive line as a strength, which is obviously very good. Hopefully this is the year that Josh Jacobs just emerges like, top 5 running back in fantasy. Good offensive line certainly will help with that. Kwity Paye off the board. I believe that's the first edge rusher, right? Yeah, so first edge off the board is Kwity Paye to Miami. I think Paye is more of a 4-3 guy. So I've been liking Azeez Ojulari as of late. Zaven Collins here at 18. But Kwity Paye, I mean, freak edge rusher, super high, ceiling due to his athleticism. And, every year at Michigan he got better, so give him credit there. Might be a little bit of a scheme adjustment, but can you get to the QB? Yeah? Okay, cool. We'll find a place for you on the field. So I don't hate it at all. If Miami sees him as edge 1, pull the trigger. They need that position to be improved upon. Then we get to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah to the Washington football team. I'm in agreement with Mel. I think this is a terrific fit. He could be an in-box linebacker. He's an upgrade over John Bostic. He could be an off-ball linebacker, and he's an upgrade over Khaleke Hudson or Cole Holcomb, who were both young and I think have had moments. But he also is potentially the best safety on this team. Cameron Curl's pretty good. Also Landon Collins after this upcoming season, after the 2021-2022 season. Next offseason, you can cut him and save $8 million. Granted, the cap number is going to go back up, but every year teams are restructuring contracts, cutting veterans, they're finding ways to create more space. And I think Landon Collins, if you take joke here, is a logical cut because Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is that safety / linebacker hybrid. He could be a strong safety that's just in the box, or he could just be a linebacker who's fantastic in coverage. It could go either way, 2 sides of the same coin. So Joke's a fantastic fit. It could save you money in the future by cutting Landon Collins, or maybe even play Collins in a similar role. Him and Joke in the box together? Shut up, that's crazy. Owusu-Koramoah can be an overhang defender. He can defend in the slot. I can't say enough of him. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I love Owusu-Koramoah. He's a freak when it comes to his athleticism, so love this pick. And it makes this defense that's already great just unbelievable. Like, it would make this defense a team that I could see, especially with Ryan Fitzpatrick under center. It can erase a lot of Fitz's mistakes. Sometimes when he's a starter, he tries to do too much, puts his defense in the bad spot. This defense is good enough to not completely bail him out, but it'll allow those situations to maybe just end up in 3 points instead of 7, or maybe no points at all. So it's a good bailout depending on how Ryan Fitzpatrick and that roller coaster might play out. So love the pick here for Washington football team. And then here's Tevin Jenkins off the board. I think this is a Sam Cosmi spot in reality, just because I think Jenkins will be off the board, but nonetheless, offensive tackle allows you to cut Bobby Massey or Charles Leno. If you go Cosmi, it's probably going to be Charles Leno, the left tackle cut. If you go Jenkins here, I think he's more of a right tackle, at least as of right now, so you cut Bobby Massey. So makes sense to me, clears up some cap space for Chicago. Don't know what they would use it on right now, but frees up money. That's always a good thing, and you just get a better football player. That's really the most important part. Tevin Jenkins is a mauler in the run game, and he's significantly better than Bobby Massey right now. So, on to the Colts at 21, Jalen Phillips. I have him as edge 1. I'll amend that. I think he can play in a 4-3 or 3-4, but 4-3, he's edge 1. Azeez Ojulari 3-4, he's my edge 1. So, some of it depends on the scheme. I think Phillips could work in both defenses. I think a lot of these guys could. Clearly, Mel thinks Kwity Paye could work in a 3-4. I see him more as a 4-3 DN, but Jalen Phillips and this 4-3 defense, dude, him on the outside, rushing from the edge, DeForest Buckner on the interior, you're starting to get some answers to that edge rush position, and maybe they even bring back Justin Houston after that April 27th deadline. And for those who don't know, that April 27th deadline, 2 days before the draft, is when signings stop counting towards compensatory picks. So I think that's when you'll hear the Chiefs call up Alejandro Villanueva and say, hey, we need a left tackle. You want to come play? It won't affect our compensatory pick situation. Or the same could be said about Indianapolis with Villanueva or Justin Houston, or maybe it's Justin Houston in Baltimore. So I think you're going to start hearing a lot of phone calls being made right before the draft. That shouldn't affect teams' draft strategies, right? Because you have Alejandro Villanueva at left tackle. He's old, not going to get that much better. The Chiefs would still have to go left tackle. The Colts would still eventually have to get a left tackle, but it would go from first round need to developmental third round guy. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully that makes sense. Nonetheless, that's not what we're talking about right here, right now. Jalen Phillips to the Colts at 21. Fills the need. He's a freak. Super impressive. Tape, also fantastic pro day. So he's checking all the boxes, getting hot at the right time. Honestly, I don't know if he's on the board at 21. So he's been a big riser as of late. You know, Elijah Moore here to the Titans. This is an interesting one, right? Because I figured Josh Reynolds is going to be their slot guy. There's no guarantee of that. But Elijah Moore in the slot is awesome. And then if you play Reynolds outside, of course, with A.J. Brown, that's a good enough outside duo. Moore can do so many things in the slot. And there's even reason to think maybe Moore can play on the outside. So he doesn't have to be bound down to the slot position, but great after the catch, knows how to get open, super quick, shifty guy. Love Elijah Moore, and he's starting to feel, despite I can't get him into the first round unless it's like Green Bay at 29, I'm having a hard time finding him in the first round. He's a guy that is a first round talent, and again, it's kind of something I mentioned earlier, and I've said it in plenty of other videos. That's what's so fun about the NFL draft is there's 32 first round picks, and there's always 40 plus players who are first round talent, you know? Factor in a team that reaches on a guy, so then another person falls out of the first round. That's why I really have enjoyed doing these 2-round mocks, and the next one I do, I think it's going to be 3 rounds, because that trickle-down effect continues. Then there's some second-round guys who fall to the third, and then those first 3 rounds, first 2 days, that's when you can get a lot of impact starters, and it allows you to really get a feel for a team's draft class, and that's really what we're grading on. Sure, sometimes there's the L'Jarius Sneed in the 4th round, that's a good value, but that's way more rare. Then it's the exception to the rule. Those first 3 rounds really make up how you grade a draft class. Anyways, Jets are on the clock next at 23. Greg Newsome with Caleb Farley off the board. That's who I have going here to the Jets. High upside play. They have 2 first-round picks. Why not take a risk with the second one? Greg Newsome, totally get it. I think he's a perfect scheme fit for Robert Saleh. That's part of why I was kind of hesitant on not doing Farley and just have him fall to the Saints at 28. But instead, Newsome, fantastic fit for the Jets. Obviously, position of need. Love that a lot. Najee Harris to the Steelers at 24. I could see it. I'm not a big running back in the first round guy, but at this point, we're at the end of the first round. And if you told me we could get Najee Harris and then an interior lineman in round 2, I think I'd be okay with it. And then we need a corner in round 3. I would I would have it the other way around. I think it'll be Landon Dickerson here, and then Javonte Williams in round 2. But there's no guarantee Williams falls to 55, so that one could go either way. Najee Harris, you know, those, and especially if you're a PFF guy, first running backs in the first round, not normally worth it in their eyes. Najee Harris is unbelievable, and he could be bust 2.0 in Pittsburgh. So, you know, I'm not normally a big running back in the first round guy, but this is a team that needs an answer at that position. And if you're telling me, and more than likely there's going to be an option there, we can get a center in round 2, whether it's Creed Humphrey, Quinn Miners, maybe even Trey Smith, Wyatt Davis. We can find somebody to play the center position. I'd be okay with Najee in round 1 then. But if it's running back then corner, you don't address the interior, then I'm kind of concerned, because I don't want BJ Finney snapping the ball to Big Ben or leaving the blocks up the middle for Najee Harris in this situation. I do think this team is tackle has been talked about a lot, but I think Pittsburgh will roll with Zach Banner at right tackle. There's plenty of hype around him, and there was before last season before he tore his ACL. And then Chukwuma Okorafor, it's going to be the left tackle. He was drafted in the 3rd round. He's going into his 3rd year. This is, again, when you see tackles make that next step forward. He was drafted to be a developmental guy. Well, he sat for 2 years behind Alejandro Villanueva, got some PT as a swing tackle. Now it's time for him to step up. So I am telling you, I don't think Pittsburgh goes tackle in the first 2 rounds. I think it's IOL then running back, or running back IOL, or IOL corner. It's between running back, interior offensive line, and cornerback with the first 3 rounds, in my opinion. But I'm obviously totally could be wrong. But I am a Steelers fan, and that's the way I've been seeing it as of late. On to the Jags at 25, Trevon Moehrig. Makes sense. They did sign Rayshawn Jenkins. Moehrig can be the number 1 free safety or the number 1 strong safety in the class. He does it all. I think in this case, Jenkins becomes the free. Moehrig plays close to the line of scrimmage at the strong. That's fine. He's great. If Urban Meyer does his job right, they're going to find ways to use him in different spots all around the field. So, tremendous talent, fills a position of need, and adds even more to that secondary in Jacksonville, which is continuously getting better. Browns on the clock at 26. Jamin Davis. This is a guy who Mel Kiper really, really likes. And I totally get why. Like, I think Mel had him like 14 on his top 25, his big board or whatever. That feels a little high, but freak athlete. And then his last year with Kentucky, the tape speaks for itself. The question was, like, why did it take so long for him to become a starter? I can understand that. And ultimately, because of an injury, he gets the starting role. But he took advantage of it. And that's impressive enough for me. So I like this pick. I think this could be IDL, especially with Jadeveon Clowney seeming 99% likely that he's going to sign with the Cleveland Browns. So they signed Clowney. That takes away. This is where I had Kwity Paye going at the edge rushing spot. Why not go get IDL? Why not get Christian Barmore to be a better Sheldon Richardson and a younger Sheldon Richardson and also a cheaper Sheldon Richardson? So then you're looking at that offensive line that has, you know, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, and Christian Barmore on it. Shut up. Like, that's crazy. Like, imagine being an opposing team's QB with those 3 monsters coming at you. Good luck. So I like IDL here, but Jamin Davis is also a good fit. Super rangy guy. Anthony Walker's only on a 1-year deal. Taki's your will linebacker, Sam linebacker, one of the two. You know, linebacker's a position to need long term. So I wouldn't hate this pick. I think that's a round 2 position to fill. I'd go Barmore here, just get a free front 4. Regardless, on to the Ravens. Terrence Marshall Jr. Yeah, big body guy, 6'4". A lot of people are mocking this. I'm pretty sure this has been the mock in every single. This has been the Ravens pick in every single one of Mel's mocks, which is kind of crazy. Pretty sure Todd McShay had it as well. So big position of need. You know, Sammy Watkins on a 1-year deal. Also, he has a hard time staying healthy. So you get a big body, smooth, polished route runner. Runs a 4.38. So checks a lot of boxes for what the Ravens are looking for. On to the Saints at 28. They get the hometown guy and Zaven Collins. Thought about this in a couple of mocks, but I think corner ends up being a bigger need, and then wide receiver in round 2 is where they go. Then maybe it's linebacker in round 3, Pete Warner, Chaz Surratt, someone like that. But Zaven Collins, if he's on the board here at 28, I mean, it's great value. He could be your Mike. He could be a rotational edge rusher at the same time. Like, what you can do with him is endless. I see him for New Orleans more as a Mike, more as that middle linebacker. And you have Marcus Davenport, who needs to step up this year, especially with Trey Hendrickson gone. And, of course, Cameron Jordan in the building as well. So, Davenport, Jordan, your edge rushers, and I think you play Collins at linebacker. Find ways for him to blitz and make an impact rushing the passer. But, again, you trust Sean Payton. You trust that coaching staff. They're smart. They know what they're doing. This is a successful franchise for a reason. Packers at 29, Rashad Bateman. Kind of a baby Devontae Adams in a lot of ways. Similar body type, similar play style of sorts. I like it. Bateman's starting to fall down boards. A little bit shorter, weighed about 20, 25 pounds less than what he was marked at on, Minnesota's official site, which, you always see the heights and weights a little different, but it feels like Bateman lost a lot of weight when he got COVID, and so far hasn't been able to put it back on, which for a receiver with how he plays, where he wants to make contested catches, he's a red zone dynamic threat, you kind of need that weight, so I believe he'll be able to put it back on. I'm not doubting that, but why not get Devontae Adams help with a wide receiver too that plays a lot like him? And in this case, you have Allen Lazard probably as your slot guy. He's got one more year under a tender, I believe, and then probably means MVS is on the way out after this upcoming season. But I like the pick a lot. I would prefer maybe Kadarius Toney. When I was doing that 3-round mock draft, I think I have Toney going here, which I love. This team could just use a slot guy. MVS can be the field stretcher or whatever. Allen Lazard could do it too. And then Adams does everything. But if they took Bateman, this would be a great pick. And so many Green Bay fans and Aaron Rodgers himself would rejoice with as big a smile as we've seen him have. So next up is the Bills' Azeez Ojulari. This is a 4-3 defense, but Ojulari, as mentioned, I think it's 3-4 edge 1 for me. But super athletic. Maybe not the longest arms, maybe not the strongest guy, but he has those long arms, and he's really athletic. Play him at D-end. I could totally see this work. Long-term answers, him and Epineza, the replacements to, as Mel notes here, Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison. And they have Ed Oliver in the interior. I like it. In a lot of ways, Epineza could be that power bull rusher if he hits, the potential we think that he could be. And then Azeez Ojulari could be that, finesse speed rusher off the other end. Kind of a nice compliment there, so I could see what Mel's going for. Jason Oweh to the Kansas City Chiefs. Interesting, right? This feels like the Chiefs have to go wide receiver, tackle, or tackle wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. But Oweh's an amazing athlete. In long term, maybe the replacement to D Ford, so this is a team that is looking to eventually get rid of that contract because Ford is making a lot of money. So in a lot of ways, I think this pick could make sense. I just think there's bigger needs presented right now, but don't always draft for needs. In this case, Jason Oweh, if the Kansas City Chiefs see him as like a generational potential edge rushing, So overall, I like the pick. I think there's bigger areas of need, but you shouldn't always draft for needs, especially when you're a Super Bowl contender. And if you can get a guy like Jason Oweh who has the potential to be a dominant edge rusher given his athletic build, he just needs some polishing. Maybe you don't pass on it here at 31. Maybe you're waiting to make that call to Alejandro Villanueva on April 27th, get a tackle, and then you go wide receiver in round 2. And the next thing you know, the questions have been answered, and you have a great developmental project at the outside linebacker position. So it's a lot to be played out there, but not a terrible pick. I would have just gone elsewhere for Kansas City. And then Christian Barmore, this is where I have him, had him going. Newer mocks, I'm going to have him going to Cleveland, but totally makes sense. This is your Ndamukong Suh replacement long-term. Great pass rushing complement to a run stopper in Vita Vea. I mean, if this happens, slam dunk pick for Tampa Bay. Then we get to the second round. Kadarius Toney off the board to Jacksonville. I just don't think this team needs a slot. I don't know. Urban Meyer has a long history. Think Percy Harvin at Florida. He has a long track record of using these slot gimmicky players. But I think Laviska Shenault is already your slot / running back / do-it-all guy. Shenault could definitely be a wide receiver 1, and he could play on the outside. I love Laviska Shenault. He was my wide receiver 5 last year, just behind the big 3, Justin Jefferson, and then it was him. And, honestly, Jefferson probably should have been a little higher in hindsight. But nonetheless, I like Laviska Shenault a lot. I think DJ Chark has wide receiver 1 type of potential. Had a huge year a couple of years ago, and he brought in Marvin Jones. Can stretch the field, good in contested catch situations. I like Jones a lot as well. Jones is on a 2-year contract. He's a little bit older, sure. So maybe you want to get a little younger. Kadarius Toney, fantastic speed. Maybe the best separator, just given his ability, his quickness. The way he can get open it's unmatched in a lot of ways. and he just got to work on his catching. But this feels like a guy that Urban Meyer would have so much fun drawing up plays for. And, you know, obviously the Florida connection's pretty cool. Urban Meyer, University of Florida, Kadarius Toney, that's cool. Jacksonville, sweet. But this does feel like a gadget slot guy that Urban Meyer could get a lot of use out of. I would just rather this be like Dylan Radunz, a guy who has inside-out versatility. Could be the left tackle of the future, he could be right tackle of the future, or he could kick inside and be the Andrew Norwell replacement. And then you go tight end with the later pick. But we'll see what Mel has here. But if they go Toney in the second round, I'm going to say this is a first-round guy. They got him in the second. Good pick. So, ETN then off the board to the Jets at 34. I kind of like it a lot. Honestly, home run fitter fits that, from San Francisco, brought to New York, that zone run type of offense. I dig it a lot. They got LaMichael Pirine. They signed Tevin Coleman, who I think also could be in for a solid role in that offense. But why not go get a guy who's just like the home run hitter? ETN makes some sense there. This could also be edge, but, they have other picks to play around with, so why not maybe take the chance to go get ETN? I kind of like that a lot. Then we get to the Falcons. They go Gregory Rousseau, a guy I still think should be in the first round. And I also think this could be a running back spot. I think this should be running back, even if ETN's not there and Najee's not. I'm starting to think Najee might be the pick here if he doesn't go in the first round, honestly. But I'll save that for my mock. But if ETN's on the board here, that makes sense. But even Javonte Williams, I think, makes a ton of sense for Atlanta. I don't know about Mike Davis being an every down back, but maybe they're just waiting until round 3, 4, 5, whatever. Rousseau's a guy who I think you still take in the first round, given a freak frame, and he's so new to the position. Like 15.5 sacks in 2019. That was the first year that he ever played edge. Like, that's crazy. Then he obviously opted out last year because of COVID. He really would have benefited from some more tape, more PT, more reps in general. But it's a big position I need. Atlanta goes for the upside play. I don't hate it whatsoever. Then Javonte Williams comes off the board. So in this case, see, this is what I'm saying. So maybe the Steelers should go Najee Harris in the first round, because is Javonte Williams really going to be on the board? Because this could be Harris and then maybe Williams here to the Dolphins, and then maybe you're settling for ETN, whatever. I mean, it's kind of tough to judge, but Williams, I love him a lot. He's my running back too. ETN 3, they're all great. Just different styles of running back. Javonte Williams, good power guy. A lot like Najee Harris, has enough burst. He's not going to break off an 80-yard run, but 4 or 5 yards at a time, Javonte Williams will get the job done. And it's definitely a position of need for Miami. So I could definitely see it happening and like it a lot. Then Nick Bolton off the board to the Philadelphia Eagles. So they went corner in round 1, and I thought they might go wide receiver. You could also, this is a good enough draft class, you could wait till round 3 and get a good enough wide receiver to complement Jalen Reagor. So, there's no third round in this mock for Mel Kiper, but maybe that's how he sees it. And Nick Bolton definitely feels a position in need. Like, they need linebacker very, very bad. Bolton can play sideline to sideline, little short, but big thumper. Like his tape a lot. Makes sense. And, really addressing the defense here in the first 2 rounds for Philadelphia. So I can respect that initiative to make that defense improve, because it definitely needs to. And then the Bengals here at 38, so they go Sewell in round 1 and De'Ami Brown at 38. I love that tandem if that's the way they went. I just see it the other way around, where they go Pitts round 1, Landon Dickerson or Creed Humphrey or Wyatt Davis here in round 2. But that's kind of the beauty of the Bengals situation. You can have it either way. You could either go get the one of the big 4 pass catchers and then interior offensive line in the second round, which I think that's where more of their holes are at, if they're going to play Williams at left tackle and Reese only on a 1-year deal, but he's at right tackle. But you are still looking for a replacement at right tackle, but that's more of a round 3 thing to me. Regardless, you could also go Penei Sewell, awesome prospect, could be franchise left tackle, all-pro level guard. However you play him, he's going to be great. And then a guy like De'Ami Brown, who I love, whoever gets him here in the second round. So if the Bengals take that route, I will not complain. Panthers at 39 go Landon Dickerson, looking for a long-term answer for Matt Paradis' spot. They're also relying on Pat Elflein. So earlier they went wide receiver. Now they go IOL. I had been thinking this is a Rashawn Slater spot back at 8. So they go wide receiver, then go IOL here with Dickerson. So answers my question. Totally makes sense. Broncos at 40. So they go Parsons, then Kelvin Joseph. Interesting. I just don't think corner is that big of a need right now, given, like he said, Darby's on a 3-year contract. I think that's a contract they'll regret, though, Kyle Fuller's on a 1-year deal. I don't see why he couldn't re-sign next offseason. But you still have Michael Ojemudia, who was solid last year, and Bryce Callahan, who's a really good slot corner. So it feels like a really crowded room as is. So I don't know. I think this should be Davis Mills. Maybe this is the little bit of competition, and Mills has that upside at the QB spot that Denver's kind of looking for. Or this could be offensive line. Again, Liam Eichenberg's on the board. Dylan Radunz is still available. I think Sam Cosmi is still available. Mel sees him as a guard. That's not happening. But anyways, find that future right tackle. You're looking for answers across the interior as well. So Radunz makes a ton of sense to me. But that's just the way I see it. Kelvin Joseph, certainly a good player. I just think Denver has different areas of need in that spot. Next up, the Lions at 41. Malcolm Kuntz, I believe is how you say his last name. Not a player I'm entirely familiar with. I'll have to go back and check out some Buffalo tape. But pass rusher, and he's saying, Trey Flowers hasn't lived up to the free agent price tag. I can totally agree with that. They did re-sign Romeo Okwara, but looking for a complement to the other edge, I could see this being a position of need, especially considering they went Jamar Chase in round 1. Could also be offensive line, right tackle the future to replace Tyrell Crosby. Also could be linebacker. Wouldn't hate that in spot, but a pass rusher here, if the Lions feel like they need somebody opposite of Okwara and they can then move on from Flowers after this offseason, it makes sense to me. Giants at 42 go Ronnie Perkins. I've been seeing this as Joseph Osai, but Perkins also makes sense here. Overall, just a pass rusher, especially on the edge. It's where the Giants need to get better. So it makes sense to me. I just like Osai because he can be that pass rusher, but he also has some flexibility to be an inside linebacker. So maybe you just play him on the inside and he's a blitzing inside linebacker, kind of like what the Steelers have liked to do in the past, but not necessarily a Giants tactic or tendency. So I think Osai just gives you that versatility and fills a couple of different roles depending on how the Giants would want to use him. But Ronnie Perkins, pass rusher, right around where I'd see him go, makes sense to me. Tyson Campbell, this feels like a really solid pick here for San Francisco. So they get QB of the future, then they address our next biggest need at corner. I like it a lot. I really do. Fits that build, taller corner, can play cover 3. I think this is really solid value, and I think he's a guy who could sneak in the end of round 1. He just has a lot of those qualities teams want in a corner. And once you get to the back half of round 1, you're talking about playoff caliber teams. They always need corner. This is a guy who will check a lot of boxes, and a team will take him. Like, I could see Green Bay at 29 pulling the trigger. I could see the Saints at 28 taking him in the first round. So if he's here in the second round, I think this is a slam dunk pick for the Niners. There's a couple different guys I could see going here. I think Kelvin Joseph actually makes some sense here for the 49ers. But with him off the board, Campbell definitely makes sense as well. Cowboys definitely need a 4-3 defensive end. Joe Tryon has a lot of versatility. He could play in a 3-4 or 4-3. But him opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence, I love it a lot. I could also see Carlos Basham Jr. being a really solid pick here for Dallas, but edge nonetheless makes some sense to me. And then here at 45, instead of going Pat Freiermuth, interesting, it's Hunter Long from BC. I see this as Freiermuth, but nonetheless, tight end, I think it's a position of need, and it's a position they definitely need to get better at. And I talked about how Jacksonville has all those wide receivers. If you go tight end here at 45, I definitely think pick 33 should be offensive line. You're looking for a long-term replacement to Norwell. You're looking for a potential future left tackle. Cam Robinson's playing on the franchise tag. You could also get better potentially at other spots across the offensive line. You're looking for your best 5. So I like Dylan Radunz, Liam Eichenberg, or someone there at 33, especially if we're going to go tight end here at 45. And I think this should be Pat Freiermuth, but Hunter Long, also a good player, fills a position in need. So then we get to the Patriots at 46. Amari Rodgers, good slot guy, can do a lot of different things. Just one of those guys you want to get the football to, create plays for him. This makes sense to me. It's a player that New England doesn't have right now. And, obviously with the retirement of Julian Edelman, they are already looking for a slot guy if they're even going 3 wide receivers. I don't know how often they'll use 3 wide receivers. I think they'll be one of the teams that uses it the least. But regardless, Rodgers can definitely be, sorry about that. Rodgers can definitely be day 1 slot guy and also just a dynamic player with the ball in his hands. And I think Bill Belichick will do a good job finding ways to get him the football. So you go Fields, then you go Rodgers. I like it a lot for New England. Eric Stokes, great value pick here for the Chargers. I've been having the Eagles take him at the top of round 2, but if he falls here to LA, You got Rashawn Slater in the first round, Eric Stokes in round 2, slam dunk draft for the Chargers. Richie Grant, this is a pick I've been having more and more as the offseason has continued. They're looking for that center field free safety. Then you play Jonathan Abram in and around the line of scrimmage, kind of like how Gus Bradley used Derwin James. I think Abrams, your Derwin James, and then Richie Grant, your center fielder in the middle blue of a cover 3. Obviously, Gus Bradley's going to do a lot of different things, but, Richie Grant's that center fielder, ball hawk, over the middle of the field, like that fit a lot. Tutu Atwell to the Cardinals. Makes sense to me. You go corner round 1, then you get a guy who can do something over the middle of the field. I think that's what this team is missing a lot. Somebody who can just be dynamic, give him the ball out in open space. Christian Kirk you can do that with because he is a good athlete, and D-Hop can do everything. But they're looking for somebody to make a difference in between the numbers. A.J. Green, what little success he had last year was in that kind of spot of the field. But Tutu Atwell, younger, better longevity of an answer at that type of need. I also see this being interior offensive line, or defensive line, excuse me. Milton Williams, Davion Nixon, both make a ton of sense here. They need to get better, both against the run, but also an interior pass rush with J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden. That's lethal. That's how you'll beat the Rams when you play them twice a year. That's how you'll compete with the Seahawks when you play them twice a year. That's how you'll compete with the 49ers you play them twice a year. So I think IDL would be how I go here, but Tutu Atwell, if you like his tape and you see him as a guy who can open up the middle of the field, by all means, Arizona, you can pull the trigger. Jalen Mayfield falling into the second round. I've had a hard time placing him in mocks. Still feel like he's the end of the first round guy, early second, but it's such a deep tackle class that these guys are naturally falling. Mayfield to the Dolphins, plug and play right tackle. I think this should be the blindside protector. You move Robert Hunt back inside to right guard, where I think he has Pro Bowl level potential. He'll be a mauler, create a bunch of running lanes for Javonte Williams, who they took at 36. Overall, shaping up to be a tremendous draft for the Dolphins, at least if it played out this way. And then the Washington football team get their QB of the future, and I'd love to go tackle here, but again, I think Washington can wait till round 3, get a guy like Brendan James, maybe. Stone Forsythe might be there. I doubt Walker Little is. Maybe he's more of a round 2 guy. But I think here at 51, whether it's Davis Mills or Kellen Mond, I think it's a QB of the future spot for Washington football team. So in this case, it's Mills. McShay's draft had Mond. I'm thinking more Mond, but QB of the future in the second round for Washington. I totally get it. Anthony Schwartz, I think I said a different name earlier, but Anthony Schwartz, this guy's super, super fast. And if you want to play him in the slot, I think that makes a ton of sense for the Bears. He's just like a younger Anthony Miller, exactly kind of what he was saying here. Miller paid too much anyways, so get rid of his contract. So offensive tackle, then dynamic wide receiver in round 2 for Chicago. Protecting and then putting a weapon in the mix for Andy Dalton. That's going to be your best bet if you don't go and trade up and get a different QB. If you're not going to do that, then, tackle, wide receiver, that makes sense. Still need a corner probably in round 3. And this is a pick I've been mocking a lot. It's kind of funny. I love seeing people thinking similar. Not that Mel Kiper gives rat's ass who I am, but
language.
Nonetheless, Asante Samuel to the Titans. This feels like such a cool fit considering Asante Samuel played for the Patriots, played with Mike Vrabel, who's now the coach of the Titans. And Asante Samuel Jr. has so much of what his dad has. Like, they're not the most athletic. They're not the biggest corner. But, dude, their ability to mirror wide receivers and read plays. Like, Asante Samuel Jr.'s ability to jump routes, it's you watch and you're like, dude, he's just like his dad, which sounds so lame because that doesn't always translate, but it did from Asante Samuel to Asante Samuel Jr. Like, any highlight I think of with Asante Samuel is like, oh, he jumped a curl route and he took it back for 6. Like, that's just like what comes to mind. And that's exactly kind of what you see on tape for Asante Samuel Jr. because he's not the most athletic. He's not the biggest. He has no room for error. So between film study and just being instinctively a great football player, he knows how to jump routes. He knows how to mirror receivers. And he knows how to do just enough to break up passes despite being, he's still a 4'4" guy. He's not unathletic, but he's not Caleb Farley, right? So, and he's not 6'2" like Farley. He's not 6 foot like Surtain, or 6'1" like Horn, so a little smaller, not the most athletic guy, but his play rack and ability to mirror and jump routes is maybe second to none. Like, it might be the best in the class. It's unbelievable. So I love this fit. It's a position of need for Tennessee. Obviously, the Asante Samuel family with Mike Vrabel too makes it cool. It'd be a really fun storyline. And here we go, back-to-back offensive tackles. Interesting. Samuel Cosme, that's a left tackle of the future, so this is kind of the Colts saying, we're going to go edge round 1, tackle round 2. Totally could see that happening. This could also be Alex Leatherwood, depending on how you rank your tackles or how many tackles have been taken before this point. But the Colts have options here, 54. Dylan Radunz would be a great pick for Pittsburgh. He could be the left tackle of the future, but like I said earlier, I think IOL is more where they want to focus. And maybe they're saying, in this case, there's going to be at least Quinn Miners, or there's going to be Trey Smith, Wyatt Davis, someone. Creed Humphrey's still on the board as of right now. One of them will be there in round 3, just playing the numbers game. And maybe they're right. Radunz could be a left tackle. He could also be a guard of the future. DeCastro is only getting older. He's still good, but he's, obviously getting older, and regression eventually will hit. But Radunz feels like a solid pick. I just think this is going to be IOL. If you're going to go running back round 1, I think it's going to be center here in round 2. But Radunz, I would love to pick. I love Dylan Radunz. Inside out versatility. Very solid player at North Dakota State. So love his tape. Makes sense for Pittsburgh. Joseph Ossai comes off the board. Versatile defensive player for Seattle. Could play outside linebacker. Could be used inside. Could also play D-end. Edge is a position of need. But they brought back Carlos Dunlap, so I'm in the mind of thinking it's going to be offensive line or corner. I'm kind of leaning more towards cornerback now, but the offensive line definitely needs help, especially at right tackle. And then Dwayne Brown is also an old left tackle, so maybe you're looking for a replacement there. Ernest Jones, okay. It's kind of an interesting spot. I just feel like if we're going to go inside linebacker, Jermaine Davis is off the board. You also have Nick Bolton off the board, but this could be Jabril Cox. I think Cox is a better player. I think Chaz Surratt, who was in Todd McShay's mock draft at this spot, I think he's better than Ernest Jones, but linebacker, definitely a position of need. I guess at that point, it just comes down to who your preference is. Ravens go Liam Eichenberg, and this could be a guy who is the Orlando Brown replacement at right tackle. He also could be a guard of the future. His arm size is the knock. The only other player in the NFL to play with sub 33-inch arms was Braden Smith, who is a damn good right tackle. So maybe Eichenberg can be that Orlando Brown Jr. replacement, but he also could be a really solid guard. So options there for the Ravens, and you're just trying to keep that offensive line elite. You're trying to keep the strength of that running game, and I think that's a good pick. People try to do that. Browns go Dwayne Eskridge. Interesting. Primarily a slot guy. Run after the catch aficionado. Very good there. You already have Jarvis Landry, who plays and lives out of the slot. OBJ, that future, I guess, could be murky. I don't think the Browns are going to trade him, but he's the outside, kind of do-it-all wide receiver. You have Rashad Higgins. You have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who you're working on progressing DPJ a little bit further. Had some moments, had some big playability. And Rashad Higgins had a couple of big games. So Eskridge could be that underneath, get him the ball in open space type of wide receiver that they necessarily, I guess, don't have. He's also really shifty. Like Landry, you can get him the ball short, but he's not quick, shifty, going to make everybody miss. Eskridge is a little bit more of that. So I could see this, and they are looking for a better third wide receiver. Though I think Donovan Peoples-Jones with OBJ on the outside, if DPJ continues to get better, and then Landry in the slot, I think that's a good enough wide receiver core, especially considering to run first team. Rondale Moore to the Saints. This is a really dynamic playmaker, and I'd love to see Sean Payton drawing up plays for him. A lot of people are saying 5'7", got to be a running back. I think you should get him the ball as a running back. I think he should be your slot wide receiver. There's no reason to think with a 42.5-inch vertical he maybe can't play outside. I think he can do a lot of different things. He is short, but if you're a good coach like Sean Payton, you're going to find ways to get him the football. And we know the Saints like their gadget guys. Taysom Hill and Rondale Moore is a gadget guy, just in a very different way. So I like that pick for the Saints. Plus, they just need more playmakers for Jameis Winston. Benjamin St. Just, cornerback from Minnesota, really big body. And in that regard, it's kind of like what I said about Tyson Campbell earlier, where he could sneak in the first round. He checks a lot of boxes. Same thing with St. Just here. Only 14 games for Minnesota. That's, the sample size is a little worrisome, but the Bills are banking on upside here at the end of round 2. St. Just is one of those guys who could definitely pay dividends, and if developed right under a great defensive-minded head coach, Sean McDermott, and a great organization who has a track record of developing players, this could be a pick where we look back and we're like, geez, who let the Bills have this steal in the end of round 2? Like, why did we let this happen? So, high upside, maybe even a high-risk type of pick here. There's other spots I might go with this pick. I think IDL, I think a run stopper, a nose tackle here makes some sense too. But I'm also just a fan of Levi Wallace as an outside corner, so maybe I'm like thinking the Bills don't need a guy opposite of Tre'Davious White, and that's blinding my judgment of this pick. But certainly high ceiling here for St. Just, so you can't knock that. Jackson Carman, this is your right tackle moving forward. I kind of like the idea of Javon Highland in this spot. It's kind of interesting. He said that could be a nickel guy or a free safety, potential replacement to Darnell Savage. But Carman can plug and play. He can play tackle. Honestly, you could play Carman at right tackle right away, or you could play him at left guard and keep Billy Turner at right tackle, or Elton Jenkins for that matter. So definitely some options with Carman. Actually, a lot of people think that he would be a better guard, but at right tackle, I think he would be just fine. Not necessarily left tackle, but I think at right tackle he'd be good. But even Mel's here saying, best suited to play guard. So maybe he's your left guard. You keep Turner out at right tackle, and it's a patched up, fixed offensive line in Green Bay. Then we get to Walker Little. End of round 2. I think that's as late as he falls here to Kansas City. So it's interesting. They go Oweh, then they go Little. So basically just ignoring wide receiver, at least until round 3, which there's still plenty of good wide receivers on the board through this mock. So there's a potential answer somewhere in the mix for Kansas City. And then after Walker Little, wide receiver off the board for Tampa Bay. With Mon on the board here, I'd love to see Mon. Just a guy who can add another ripple into the offense, do things that Tom Brady obviously can't, and they're returning all their starters. Why not add one more element to your offense, plus QB the future? You want to go with the upside there, but they also do need wide receiver. Haven't brought back Antonio Brown. Need a replacement to Chris Godwin eventually. So don't hate it whatsoever. But comment your thoughts down below on Mel Kiper Jr.'s mock draft 4.0. I'm eager to hear what you have to say about his mock, but also let me know what you think about my breaking down and my reaction to his mock, and if I'm right on the money or if you think I'm crazy. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button. It would mean the world to me. And if you're new to the channel, like sports content and want more of it, please consider subscribing. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and until next time, my name's Tej, and I'm signing off.
Part of the last generation that remembers time of God.